Hi, here you can see what movies and series Jason Statham has been in so far, so let's go. Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels vs. Bacon. Snatch vs. Turkish. Turn It Up vs. Mr. B. Ghost of Mars vs. Sergeant Jericho Butler. The One vs. MVA Agent Evan Funsch. Mean Machine vs. Monk. The Transporter vs. Frank Martin. The Italian Job vs. Handsome Rob. Collateral vs. Frank Martin. Cellular vs. Ethan Greer. Transporter 2 vs. Frank Martin. Revolver vs. Jake Green. London vs. Bateman. Chaos vs. Detective Quentin Connors. The Pink Panther vs. Yves Gluant. Prank vs. Chev Chelios. War vs. FBI Agent John Crawford. The Bank Job vs. Terry Leather. In the Name of the King vs. Farmer Daimon. Death Race vs. Jensen Garner. Transporter 3 vs. Frank Martin. Prank vs. Chev Chelios. 13 vs. Jasper Bagges. The Expendables vs. Lee Christmas. The Mechanic vs. Arthur Bishop. BLITZ vs. Detective Sergeant Tom Brandt. Killer Elite vs. Danny Bryce. Safe vs. Luke Wright. The Expendables 2 vs. Lee Christmas. Parker vs. Parker. Redemption vs. Joey Jones. The Expendables 3 vs. Lee Christmas. Wild Card vs. Nick Wilde. Furious 7 vs. Deckard Shaw. Spy vs. Rick Ford. Mechanic vs. Arthur Bishop. The Meg vs. Jonas Taylor. Hobbs and Shaw vs. Deckard Shaw. Wrath of Man vs. Patrick. Operation Fortune vs. Orson Fortune. Thanks for watching the video.